Welcome to Interware's first podcast in a series of podcasts to come. Today, we're going to be talking about digital transformation and what it means to Interware. Interware is a company that's a UK-based company, founded in 2015, and powers a platform called Workflow Plus, which is a digital workflow and task platform aimed to support the connected worker. And today, my first guest on the podcasts is Keith Tilley, who's CEO of Interware. Yeah, introduce yourself, Keith.
I think you did a good job of interviewing me,
Yeah,
or introducing me, I should say. Hi, Brad. How are things going?
very well, very well. Literally working with various different organizations at the moment across the key market sectors of manufacturing, utilities, infrastructure, and oil and gas, as you know very well. I think what would be good is to give everyone, I suppose, a bit of an introduction to where Workflow Plus sits, what it means as far as digital transformation, because I don't know your thoughts, Keith. Digital transformation is a very wide
It
phrase,
is indeed.
and it means different things to different people. Keith, give us a bit of an overview of how you see Workflow Plus and where it fits with the people using it at the moment.
Well, I think starting point should be what you said about digital transformation. Workflow Plus is definitely an enabler for digital transformation. I think the problem some people have is that they see digital transformation as being this monstrous thing that's going to take forever to do and also be very disruptive. And I think what Workflow Plus helps it to look at is more of a journey
Hmm.
that you take to get to a destination, right? It's actually a destination you'll never get to because I've been around in IT for many, many years. And if you think you understand it, it probably means you don't understand it because it's changing rapidly. And I think if people take that view of, I know I need to digitalize certain things, such as paper processes, and see it as being, okay, where do I start? Then Workflow Plus can be a very good enabler to start that journey. And every journey starts with a single step.
It
I
does.
think it does indeed. I'm sure, with your background, it's more a case of people sometimes thinking, how do I eat this elephant?
Yeah.
And the answer is the only way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time, right? And I think that's important.
I think it's important we've got our first sales analogy in there as well with the elephant one. So that's quite a good one.
Absolutely.
I think you're right. I think for me personally, I think a lot of companies see digital transformation as a almost an organizational enterprise-wide scenario where actually a lot of it's being achieved in certain areas. About data being inputted. About CRP systems, CRM systems, but you mentioned paper processes there, and I think that's a big area where, we Interware and Workflow Plus are solving a lot of problems for companies where, it's amazing you see these organizations who have invested in this great architecture around new data input, but when you actually go to the operational side of things, what people are doing on a day-to-day basis, pen and paper is still a very dominant area that they work on. And where Workflow Plus is helping those companies take that simple step of just starting to digitize and collect data from the workforce, from the shop floor. I think that makes a massive difference. But like you said, it is a very, very simple step, but just people not resilient to take that step sometimes, but it is change management, it is transformational from the way people work. Maybe that's a challenge that organizations don't just see it as that holistic thing of taking on a very big revolution, but it's just taking those basic steps to evolve quickly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think by using the connected worker, you're using a point of ingress into the company where the data can first be captured. And so if you capture it at that point, then you can make far greater use of it. I'm a great believer in data informed decisions.
Yeah.
In other words, if you collect the data, it helps inform decisions. I don't think data by itself makes your decisions for you. You still have to put some of your logic and your experience into it. But having that data captured as soon as possible within an organization helps that. And it's a perfect place. When that person's inspecting that machine for the first time, gone out there, got their process, to be able to capture that in a way where the data can be extracted by each of the steps that take Because again, we see people saying, I've already digitalized. And when you talk to them, what they've done is they've taken a paper form and turned it to a digital form,
Yeah.
right? The data still is
Yeah.
not being captured in a digitalized way.
Yeah.
It's being captured on a digital form, but it's not digitalized. If you capture it through Workflow Plus, where you look at each step, you see how long each step takes. You can take pictures, you can take videos, you can take readings.
Hmm.
Then the capture of that instantly back to head office, back to a health and safety officer, back to an administrator means that you can make decisions and informed decisions based on the data you get. And that's why I think it's so important for the connected worker. It empowers the connected worker to do far more than what they currently do. I mean, one of the examples you know about is the client who used to send inspectors out 4 days a week,
Yeah.
who would then come back with a pile of paper and sit for the fifth day of the week
Yeah.
and input that data.
Yeah.
To me, that's crazy, right? If you can take Workflow Plus out there on a mobile device, a simple tablet, headset, if you want to use the wearables as well, if they need to be hands free, which we'll probably talk about later, and capture that data, that means that person can do 20% more work because they can do it 5 days a week and the data's already captured. So I'm not waiting till Friday to find out on Monday what was happening on that inspection. I can find out actually while they're doing it if I want to, or later on in that day. And again, that's a simple way of saying I'm starting to enter that digital transformation that will get me a lot further. And I can then take it to the next stage, which is if I've captured the information with the inspection, maybe I can take that data and say, okay, now I need to schedule a repair because I can see that the bearings are getting to that point where I need to schedule a repair. And more importantly, do it at a time that's not going to cause a breakdown,
Yeah.
which of course with manufacturers, if you take out a line of manufacturing, you are losing money.
Yeah.
If you can, during a normal routine inspection, find out something, interrogate the data, be able to predict when something's going to happen or ahead of something happening, then that is very powerful for you from a manufacturing point of view because it means I can schedule those things in at
Yeah.
the right time and avoid that unplanned downtime.
Yeah.
So I think there is a huge benefit on basically taking those paper processes and putting them into a digital transformation mode using Workflow Plus, obviously.
Yeah.
But the amount of additional experience and information you can get from, you see, that's my PC bleeping at me in the
Yeah.
background telling me I need to do something.
Mhm.
Um, but if I can get that data then and be able to do some more informed decision making on it, it's far more powerful.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think one of the key benefits, and you mentioned it there, is it's live data, it's enriched data, which makes a massive difference. So as processes are completed and tasks are done, and workflows are finished, that live data creates a lot of trigger opportunities for a business. And reporting is one of those areas where we see a massive productivity gain for businesses because what Workflow Plus can do is obviously create those instant reports. So as soon as a task completed, that report then can be integrated, distributed. So not only is it increasing productivity, it's massively increasing compliance as well. A lot of businesses we see have to report issues, problems instantly, and yet because people are doing it in a disjointed way, which is they're going out and completing one process, which is pen and paper. They're then completing another process, which could be typing it up, regurgitating it into a CMS system like SAP or Maximo. It just adds more and more time. But I suppose one of the key elements I mentioned there is it's the user. It's the user, and one of the big things that's very very important in digital transformation and what we do is that user acceptance. And me, I personally see that as one of the biggest key features that Workflow Plus has. A, replacing existing procedures, or B, I suppose other softwares on the market. It's that's where Workflow Plus sets the standard, I think, as far as how easy it is to adopt and use. And what would you see as the other key features that Workflow Plus has in the market against its competition and I suppose replacing existing procedures?
I think you've picked up a couple of good points. I think that's quite often inside an organization, you get the buying from executives, you get buying from people who want to push this digitalization. But the real people you need to get the buy-in is from the people who are going to use it, right? If they feel comfortable with it, and they can see how it enhances what they do, then the adoption is going to be far rapid. It's also interesting, again, as we've experienced, when we go to roll this out with certain clients, we've been to clients where we've got together and we're looking at paper processes with them. And when they come to start to put those into Workflow Plus, they realize that the end user, the connected worker, isn't exactly doing the process like that. We've actually seen it around the table where people come in and say, well, that's not quite how we do it. And it's kind of like almost a shock. What do you mean you don't do it like that? Well, we know there's a better way of doing it.
Yeah.
And so therefore we've gone off script a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that doesn't help the person in the other factory who's trying to do the same thing. With Workflow Plus, it does mean once you've put that digitalization in place, the ability to change that process is instantaneous.
Yeah.
So you could put a change in today that is already sent out by the time I next load that workflow down,
Yeah.
wherever I am in the world, it's got the latest version on. So that enhances that. I also think it gives quite often a chance for people to relook at those processes, right? In light of the way that you're going to put it together, it enables you to almost not, I wouldn't say redesign, but refine the process to make
Mm-hmm.
sure it's applicable to the way it goes. That also has a side benefit. Again, it's always the benefits come later sometimes. With that process in place, think how easy now it is to train somebody how to do that. You're not giving them a piece of paper, you're giving them a proper workflow that shows how to do it. Or, by the way, I've recorded that workflow as well, so you can actually watch this person doing it.
Yeah.
So as you get to that other issue that's hitting a lot of industries where there's an older workforce experienced who's retiring, right? I'm nearer that than you are, Brad. There you go. From that perspective, you've got these younger people coming in who need to have that experience. And what better way of getting that experience than almost saying, look at the way these people do it.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that we're using technology that those end users, those end connected workers already use. So, anybody who thinks, how do I get this deployed? It's a case of, well, do your people use mobile phone? Well, of course they do.
Yeah.
Well, download the app, right? It's no different to you doing, normal things that you do on your phone can now be done in this way
Yeah.
by using Workflow Plus, right? From that perspective, so it gets that buy-in going further forward. Point about compliance as well. The other thing that Workflow Plus can do in the way that it captures the data, it can enable you to show your compliance from an audit point of view. Again, if you take a simple checklist that people have used in the past,
Yeah.
it does say that, Brad did this. He's ticked the box to say he did it. Well, how did he do it? How long did it take him to do it? Where was he when he did it?
Yeah.
Was he sitting back in his car because he's been out on as we know, the solar panel
Yeah.
doing some work, but he's actually only ticked the checklist when he gets back? Far better to do it while you're there,
Mm-hmm.
right? And again, you can enable the connected worker to do far more. So if you want to advance it a bit, you can use wearable devices. So if the process is really a requirement for two hands,
Yeah.
so again, oil and gas you mentioned, you know, I think I would like to have both my hands free if I'm up an oil rig,
Yeah. I,
all right,
I can
and I'm
understand that.
not holding a clipboard
Yeah.
or a mobile phone. So having a head-mounted tablet, like something like RealWare have developed,
Yeah.
means that I can have both hands, but I can see the instructions on the screen. I can hear the instructions. I can dictate, input into that. I can take the photos, take the videos, and remain safe.
Yeah.
And all the while, the data being captured so that I can do that audit check at the end from a compliance point of view to say, hey, this person did do it properly. They
Mm-hmm.
did follow the procedures. They did it. I've got the photographic evidence. I've got the timing. I've got the location because of GPS. So there's a whole, again, the amount of added benefits from capturing the data is just huge.
Yeah.
So I think that's why we've come at it. We've got a great design team as well, as you know, in people like Tom.
Yeah.
So therefore, the user interface is very friendly to use as well. I think that's important
Yeah.
because we're not expecting people to be IT gurus to
No.
use this, right? I was always taught that guru stood for good understanding, relatively useless. What we try and do is a good user interface, so the person who's using it feels comfortable to use it,
Yeah.
and makes it easy. We talk about engage, design, deploy, ABC.
Yeah.
It is easy. It's getting people to understand how to take that first step as we go back to there.
Yeah, I think it is. I think that's the important thing, and I think that's what makes Workflow Plus deployable across the business. Because we should probably add it is app first for the end user. So obviously, if you're using Apple, it's available for Apple. If you're using Android, Samsung's, etc., it's available there. And you mentioned the real world devices, and it's available on their cloud store as well. So that's very important to mention because not only are you giving people back the time, which is obviously non-reporting, you can instantly create that information. It makes it very deployable as well. So I think another big element of Workflow Plus is we talk about a lot of existing procedures there. But what makes it more deployable and easy is not just from that connected worker. It's very simplistic to create new procedures in Workflow Plus as well and create workflows. So what we see of a lot of companies is when we talked about oil and gas, we may have something like asset inspections happening and then after the inspection's been done, the maintenance. But then they look about, whatever use cases we can use. So, just something as simple as a facilities check. You can go back to Workflow Plus, create a new workflow, and then distribute that across your teams as well. So I think that's another, real positive about Workflow Plus. It becomes a very deployable platform where, if you take it on the initial 50, 60 people, it's very easy to deploy it across more people because of the app. And it's very easy to deploy it across multiple use cases because that ability to create new processes.
Yeah, I think the drag and drop editor is a perfect example of being able to do that. I remember that client we were talking to in South America, which Louise, who as you know runs our customer success,
Yeah,
at a train one day, and the next day they were giving us a demonstration of
yeah,
how to create workflows. Literally 24 hours later, it's
yeah,
gone like, how long have you been using it? Oh, Louise trained me last night, and that to me really hit me in the face as to we always talk about it being easy, but that really proved the point to me
yeah,
more than anything else. This person had created quite a complicated workflow in some respects from an existing process, and had literally done it in a matter of hours after Louise had trained him how to do it. So it does help that. I think the other thing it does as well is because we're vendor neutral when it comes to things such as devices, but we're also vendor neutral when it comes to things such as remote experts.
yeah,
You know, quite often, when you're doing something, installation, inspecting, health and safety check, all the things our customers do, it can be the case of I might need to phone a friend because this hasn't quite gone right. So the ability to pause the workflow, use one of the remote experts, whichever one you want to use, or just use Teams,
yeah,
right, or something like Teams, means that you can phone the friend, get some advice, right, then come back in. And clearly, if you're using devices again like the RealWare, you can actually show the camera so they can see actively what you're doing without taking your hands away as well,
yeah,
and be able to pinpoint. Okay, there's the problem. Do this, then come back into workflow, finish the workflow off. So again, and you talk about getting the information around. Again, as the report writer can be customized, so you
yeah,
can customize where you want, but you can also do links out so that you can send part of the report to certain departments. So that bit's only of interest to the health and safety person because that was the health and safety check that the worker did at the beginning. Send it out.
yeah,
This bit tells me about the reading, so I need to send that to the maintenance people so they understand where we're at with that particular device. So it has a whole lots of benefits. I think what's also interesting is it's got infinite benefits across different industries.
yeah,
We have good use cases in manufacture, oil and gas, utilities, etc., etc. But now we have those prospects that we're talking to in the healthcare,
yeah,
where the healthcare workers are going out and you need them to follow certain procedures. Does this person, showing this kind of illness, let's do this check. Again, very powerful.
yeah,
Yeah, you can pull in different workflows so that if you branch out and say, okay, symptoms are like this,
hmm,
or you probably need to do a check of this,
yeah,
to see whether they've got septicemia. So here's what you need to do. Pull in the workflow that says this is a check you need to do. And again, that person on the ground could be a level one practitioner
yeah,
who then needs to think, hey, this tells me that I need to phone a serious friend because these readings are out.
yeah,
We're now not talking about machine readers, we're talking about blood pressures, things like
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah,
And then you can phone back in. So to see how the medical are also adapting to some of this is really interesting. They kind of, you know, it's unlimited. We've got to be very careful not to kind of bore the ocean here, but another sales
never
phrase.
stops me.
Going in there. We need to focus on where we can really help. right? But there is so many opportunities to help outside of some of the areas that we even work in now. It's almost frightening. But again, that's technology. Technology never stands still. You know, it's always when should I buy a new mobile phone? Tomorrow, because tomorrow there'll be one that's better out today.
Yeah,
But you've got to go back to that beginning, start the journey. Otherwise, you'll be left so far behind
yeah.
that you'll
Uh,
find it hard to catch
and
up.
that is a big challenge for a lot of organizations. I think, where we've been helping companies, they see the productivity gains. We've talked about that. We talked about easy deployment. That's great. And that does have effect on the P&L for that business. They see more work being done, or they can reduce the expense based on the workload they have because they're increasing their productivity, which are all really, really strong benefits. But you mentioned the remote expert solution. You mentioned things like the RealWear devices and head-mounted tablets and those sorts of things. Another key problem for a lot of organizations is that skills gap. And that skills gap, and that is that aging workforce that are leaving or retiring, and then that gap between the next generation of people coming in. That's a massive benefit because not only have you got the workflow, so, not every senior engineer needs to be told how to do their job from a workflow, a digital workflow, but it's the data they capture, it's the information they capture, and perfecting and evolving that procedure based on their experience. To then pass that on to someone who has a almost step-by-step guide on how to complete an inspection, a maintenance procedure, a compliance check, a point of work risk assessment in a very, very serious environment, like we said, an oil rig or something like that. Then, when you have that challenge that happens, as you said, that all best laid plans, you hit a stumbling block based on an error or a fault that isn't clearly mapped out as very unique. To have a senior engineer sat at their desk to then connect through into that workflow via a remote expert solution to then support that junior engineer, that's massive. That's huge because just from a carbon neutral benefits, the cost savings, we see organizations then using one senior engineer to support a team of junior engineers. And what we've also seen is companies then subcontract into geographical based engineers. So, a company could be based in the UK but have contracts in South America, in Asia. They're then able to support them to that level. Is that another big, massive tick in the box for these organizations looking for these digital transformation journeys?
Yeah, I mean, if you can use picking up on a couple of points, there is the new workforce. We talked about that, and we talked about using the experience, making sure it's implemented and more importantly captured so that they can train. But also this workforce that's coming through expects to use digital.
Yeah, yeah,
I think there's going to be an age of people where they'll come in and who have never used paper in their life before, from that perspective. So therefore, it's important that if you want to attract the talent, that you have the tools that the talent want to use.
yeah,
That they'll expect it. They won't expect to see a clipboard or a pen. They'll expect to see a tablet, a phone,
yeah,
voice recognition. So from that point of view, I think it's definitely an area that companies are going to see. I think also the ability, as you say, using that kind of idea of okay, contractors out in different parts of the world. Imagine, hey, yeah, I do know I've got to do something out there. My staff's not there. Well, I can get this contractor to do it, and I know they're going to follow the correct procedure because I'm going to get them to download the app. I'm going to get them to download the workflow that I know is the right workflow. I'm going to get them to follow it, and I'm going to be able to see that they followed it because I'm going to get all the data back. So that's got to again be an advantage. You say you don't have to fly people
yeah,
all over the world to do that, or fly them onto an oil rig where you have to do the helicopter. Yes. Yeah, it must, yeah, how much it costs to send one person to do something that if you could send them the right process and could watch what they did and get more importantly back the data to show that they did it, I mean, hugely beneficial. You probably could save the cost of, 2 years worth of license from the one person who has to go out there
yeah,
to do that, right? And again, I don't think people understand these kind of little added benefits. The so what's of doing this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So what? I've digitalized this. Well, so what? Every time you change it, it's instantly changed. So what? I don't have to send people out there. There's so many
yeah,
added benefits that come out. As you know, usually when we talk to customers, they've got a fixed idea in their head. I've got this problem. Can you solve it? Which is
yeah.
great. That's what normal selling is about. What's the problem? How do I solve it? But by solving that problem with Workflow Plus,
Hmm.
the knock on is, sometimes I'm amazed how much more stuff you get as a result of that. That people we talked about the solar panels, that company that found out through the data that was extracted from doing routine maintenance that they were inherently inefficient in the way they were dispatching their engineers out.
Yeah,
Right, they were able to tell because of the data captured. Right, they wouldn't have got that from pieces of paper.
no,
They suddenly get, why did it take him so long to do from there to there to there? Oh my God, if only we'd organised his work in a different way, they would have been more efficient.
yeah,
Make the end user more efficient, they become more beneficial to the company.
yeah. Better
Right.
organisation.
So from
Yeah.
that perspective, that's the point of view.
I think it is interesting. I agree that the benefits are huge, and it's helping businesses to understand those different directions, and making the frontline worker who effectively that's what the organisation does. If that makes sense, and, that's what they're producing, that's what they're making, that's what they're selling, and making them more efficient, and getting added benefits. Like I said, supporting that next generation is massive. But organizations are complicated places, Keith, as we all know. So yeah, helping the connected worker and making it simple for them is a massive benefit. But Workflow Plus goes into a larger stack, a larger architectural system. Businesses have software already. You know, Workflow Plus can work both upstream and downstream as well, which is I think massively important for them. And I think we've talked about the data. Dragging that data downstream for the organization, so away from the connected worker. And yeah, that information on the report and that compliance makes a massive, massive difference. But from a business intelligence point of view and an analytical point of view, because that's enriched live data, not only can you see where people are at that point, not only can you see where they've done it, how long it's taken, geo tracking's involved as well, so you can see if someone's gone out to do a wind turbine, is it the right wind turbine they're at, et cetera, et cetera. But all that data, all that information they picked up, we see our clients using platforms like Power BI to really visualize specific to them, specific to their needs to move forward. That again is a huge benefit for the organisation. Are you seeing that, and how do you feel that's benefiting businesses we deal with?
Yeah, I think there is a number of things that, as I say, so many different additional benefits. You talk about, are they at the right, are they at the right wind turbine, stuff like that. Obviously, we try and make sure, going back to our ABC as is possible, have you got a barcode, QR code on the side? Scan that so that it
Yeah,
says, I know what this is, I know what the serial number is, and therefore I can load the right workflow to be able to do exactly the right size for that. So I think that is that's another kind of added benefit to it. And I certainly think looking at the future, there's going to be times when we are going to be involved. Obviously AI is the big thing at the moment. Time IoT. There's going to be a time when we'll be able to talk to some of those devices to
yeah,
get the basic data coming in the first place. But, in many areas, there are machines out there that are 10, 15, 20 years old,
hmm,
which are still working,
yeah,
particularly manufacturing plants that,
hmm,
no problem with them. They're going to continue to be maintained and required. So, we can cross the void between both the old and the new from that perspective. Again, that's going to increase. You go back to the return on investment that you mentioned,
yeah,
right? That's going to increase the return on investment of the original devices and also the return on investment that you've made in the digitalization that you're going through, whether that's with our software or with the hardware. I think it works in both ways. The, as I say, there is huge benefits. Taking the first step is still the important part of it, and that's probably our challenge to show people how easy it is to take that first step.
yeah,
And it's a case to me of if it's not us, then who's going to do it? And I'm talking about the customer. Then, if it's not you in the customer who's going to do it, then who is?
yeah.
And if not now, then when? Because if you don't, you will be left behind.
Yeah.
right? Never mind all the inefficiencies that you can iron out, all the return on investments that you can get, the benefits that you can get. You will be left behind by your competition, right? And at the end of the day, that's who you are competing against. It's your competitors. Um, and trust me, everybody's looking at this. Everybody's trying to find the right way of doing it.
Mhm.
We're here, as you know, to help you start that journey,
Yeah.
right? Because this is it's an easy place to start, but the benefits come immediately,
Yeah.
right? So even if you take that first bite of the elephant, it will be very satisfying and it will give you nourishment and it will give you good return. And the next time you bite, even more and even more. So it's not a case of I've got to wait to eat the whole elephant before I see the elephants. No, you won't. You'll see the benefits from that very, very first bite. This is a terrible analogy, but you know
Yeah.
that's it's true. We've seen
Yeah.
that in that in that Scottish company that could save hundreds of £1,000s a year from
Yeah.
one process change in one factory, right? The factory in Milan that has now cut down the time it takes them to clean the
Yeah.
machines
Changeovers. Yeah.
between their runs.
Hmm.
So again, going back to the changeover times and the fact that the machine is down for less time because I've procedurized in a digital way that I can audit the way of to clean that machine. Instant benefit.
Yeah.
One line in one factory,
Yeah.
right?
No, you're right, and I think that there's quite a lot covered there. And I think it is people taking that step. I think I use the trying to evolve, using evolution over revolution. And some companies do. They engage and they try and see the holistic long-term benefit. And yet at the moment you're still using pen and paper, and you have to go through those steps. And I think businesses try to, but talking about the future like you did as well, I think there's some very good points there. Again, that predictive maintenance piece, where people can start using Workflow Plus now straight away, gain that data around how they inspect their machinery, even their historic machinery, not just machines that have IoT sensors and those sorts of things. That business intelligence and analytics is massive. I think it's good to mention that Workflow Plus can generate data upstream as well. So if companies are using CMS systems, and in manufacturing, in oil and gas, utilities, and those sort of things, they're using systems like SAP, IBM
IBM
Maximo. We
Maximo,
can
yeah.
drive existing workflows or
Oh yeah.
work orders from that. But I think that's important to mention
No,
because
you're right.
what we do try and do is that simplicity. So if you have the work orders in some way, shape, or form already, we're not going to sit there and ask you to repeat the process. It can be automated, and I think that's a word we haven't used much today when we've been talking. Is a lot of workflow plus it is a built around automation, and making it as user friendly both from the connected worker point of view, right from the creation point of view as well. Um, I think I think we've covered it off very, very well. I think we've looked at the different use cases. We've talked about it. I think it's good to talk about maybe just as we finish off on how we engage with people, and you mentioned that briefly. But everything needs to be done in little steps, as we've said. So the way we engage with a lot of companies is we do offer trial periods. Sometimes that may be like a free trial. Sometimes that may be like a POC, a proof of concept. And sometimes with larger organizations who have multiple use cases, now we even do something around a supported field trial where we really help them yeah, not dip the toe, but almost dip their foot in the water and then start to really test something. So they can build that business case, they can build that understanding, and they can build that, I suppose, that understanding of where those hidden benefits are as well as the benefits they're trying to achieve quickly. Do you feel that's a good way as a CEO for the business? Have you seen the benefits of that almost engage and design stage before deploy?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, particularly because of what we are doing, we are changing the way people do things,
Hmm.
right? Can't get away from that, right? But we're changing it to a better way with tools that people are used to using,
Yeah,
empowers those people. As you say, you don't have to throw away your old systems. We can integrate with them and take the data that's needed out, particularly for larger companies, enterprise companies. Smaller companies probably don't have those, so therefore it can be the whole solution for them. Um, but it is a case of, you know, one of the things you talk about, Nick talks about when he talks to the customers as well, is, you know, if you are going to, even if you're going to do a free trial, and I'm not particularly keen on free trials because you want people to be committed to something. But if you're doing a free trial, or even if you're doing the POC or supported feedback, why are you doing it?
Yeah,
What's the use case you're doing it for? And more importantly, what are you hoping the outcomes will be? Because then we can help. Right?
yeah,
If we understand the business outcomes you're trying to drive towards, we can help you make sure the design
yeah.
is done properly. So you've engaged with us, but by talking to you, understanding what the trial's for, what the expected outcomes or hopeful outcomes are, then we can help design that so that we mutually achieve those requirements, and then move into the deployment. Because as you get to the deployment, then you start reaping the true benefits from that perspective.
I like to use that phrase operationalize, and I think that's quite a good one, which is used quite a lot. But that's what you need to do is you need to operationalize it for that, why and how. That's the key things here, which again, probably an older sales analogy as well, is why we're going to do this and how we're going to see the result. And I think whatever you do, whether it's a free trial, a POC period, which 3 to 6 months, or even a large supported field trial where you cover multiple aspects, it's still having what does success look like. And if you can understand what success looks like, both from our point of view, it makes our lives a little bit easier, but from the organization or the company you're dealing with, the customer you're dealing with, that's so important because you can create little hurdles that you can go over as a business, and then you can tick those boxes, which helps to build that business case. And as we know with this sort of platform, this sort of software, that's the most important. And you do mention smaller organizations. I think that's quite important. We've talked about a lot of downstream and upstream and that sort of thing. But Workflow Plus itself does collect its own data, and it has its own ability to extract information, run queries, etc. as well. So like I said, it can be its own individual platform for an organization like that. So look, I think we've covered off a lot of the areas in that, and we've got quite a few sales analogies in. We should add meat to the bone. Reaching out, I don't know if we could play sales analogy bingo maybe after this, but we've covered a lot of them. So look, Keith, I want to thank you for your time today. It was the first call, the first podcast we've done, and I think we've covered off Workflow Plus. I don't know if there's anything you want to add before we finish up.
No, I think the proof of the pudding is what we see. Those customers who signed initially for a short term, then for 1 year, then for 2 years, and now the customers who are renewing for 3 years,
Yeah,
shows the benefits we got. And certainly, yeah, the future is bright. It's not orange, but
yeah,
it's it's bright. And somewhere in there is certainly Workflow Plus for those people who want it. But take that first step. Don't be afraid. Talk to us. Right?
yeah.
We'll help you.
And I suppose that's the big one, Keith, is if anyone wants to reach out after this and talk to you, how can they get hold of you?
Simply go to www.interware.com and request help, and you'll get through to us. Or look us up on LinkedIn, Bradley Fluke, Keith Tilley. We're here to help, right? For anybody. So great to talk to you, Brad. As
So now, yeah, thanks, Keith. And again, like Keith said, you can reach out to us via the website, and there'll be our details underneath the podcast. So yeah, thanks once again, Keith, and I look forward to our next podcast coming soon.
thanks. Bye.